The phrase "history repeats itself" is no stranger to the world of cinema. World events, economics, trends, and even filmmakers and their philosophies have always found new ways to pop back up or even parallel with their forebears in the industry, no matter what country you're in. Case in point, Robert Rosen and Steve Zaillian, both screenwriters turned directors who dabbled in a mixture of different films, including personal dramas, crime thrillers, and large-scale epics, who both then decided to adapt Robert Warren Penn's famous 1946 political drama about the rise and fall of the Huey P. Long-inspired politician Willie Stark. Both films featured top-quality casts, both were made by Columbia Pictures, and both came out during interesting periods in America's history. The first film during the communist panic known as the Red Scare, the beginnings of the Cold War, and, well, the after effects of the end of World War II, while the second came out after 9/11 and the increasing distrust and questioning of the Bush administration. Both timely and topical. But while Rosen's version is held in very high regard and even scored a few awards, Zaillian's film was crucified by critics on release, despite a lot of big Oscar buzz relating to the writer, the cast, and the subject matter. But why? What could have gone so wrong here? Set in 1950s Louisiana, updated a good 20 years from the book's original setting, the film documents Stark's humble beginnings as a lawyer and rise to power as governor of the state, as well as his ultimate downfall, from the perspective of journalist Jack Burden, who gets drawn into Stark's ever murkier world and finds parallels with his own affluent family's series of misfortunes. With a film that I personally found very, very split, I think I'll start with the definite good first. It's photographed and scored beautifully, as you'd expect with this kind of creative team on board. Zaillian gives the film a sort of desaturated look, hitting home the bleakness of the backwater state as well as the greyness of Stark's morality, while the late great James Horner provides a suitably melodic and often sinister score that fits the story's themes like a glove. In particular, his track, "Give Me the Hammer and Nail 'Em Up," is a very poignant piece. That is by turns sweeping and melodic and very inspiring as Stark goes on his campaign, while also definitely having a sinister edge to it. The all-star cast, likewise, despite accents, are predictably effective, with Sean Penn delivering the needed bombast and passion of the lawyer-turned-corrupt governor, and has to carry most of the film. Jude Law is good too as a disillusioned journalist fighting his own demons, especially in Old Flame and her brother, played by Kate Winslet and Mark Ruffalo respectively, who are also fairly solid. We even get Anthony Hopkins and the late James Gandolfini in supporting roles as a powerful judge and Stark's first major ally, though sadly neither get really that much to do and feel more like novelties there for the marquee value. Frankly, it's in the narrative where things really get hazy with this men's film. Drifting between political corruption with Stark and Burton's own story of manipulation and loss, the shift just isn't handled very smoothly at all. In fact, Burton's story seems to be more dominant, detracting from Stark, who, when you get down to it, is really the whole selling point of an All the King's Men adaptation, and where you would ideally want the focus on to be in a screen version. And because there is that unbalance, the film is often meandering and unfocused, which takes away from some great potential allegory and parallels with modern politics, no doubt a huge motivation in retelling the story in the first place, as well as really exploring those shades of grey with Stark where you'd think someone like Zaillian would be most at home with. In Schindler's List, for example, he handled that extremely well with the titular protagonist. But here, once he gets into office, Stark pretty much becomes a two-faced, weaselly, cartoonish bad guy. No sense of why or how, or even if this was his only option, no attempt to explore the psyche or underlying reasoning, just boom, he wins the election and then becomes a total sleazebag. No arc, no turning point, nada, zip, zilch, no effort to really bother discussing the nature of compromise, just done and done. It's very, very disappointing to say the least. And as for Burton's story in and of itself, it's perfectly decent, passable family drama, very atypical, but again, it feels like it's detracting from where the story should be focused on. Yes, there is some parallel between how both men let people down, and they are tied together to an extent because Burton's family factor into Stark's political schemes, but it just drags out, and again doesn't feel like that's really where the heart of this story should be. What works in a book doesn't always translate to screen, and this type of sprawling, laid-back narrative with many strands feels better consumed over the course of chapters where you can really get into the heads of the different characters, not in a 2-hour film that has to try and have some sense of a point, especially if you're making a political film. It just baffles me what went so wrong here. Perhaps the notoriously difficult production and especially the post-production problems Zaillian had might explain it. Perhaps Columbia had some lack of faith in the film. Who knows what it is, but really it just doesn't amount to as much as it clearly should. In the end, the film isn't by any means boring, nor is it as big an abomination as critics have branded it as, but it just feels like Zaillian is juggling too many things and ends up creating a pompous mess that doesn't feel like it has much of a voice or anything to say. Had he focused the story more squarely on Stark and really gone into examining the backstabbing nature of politics and the very grey morality that comes with it and the choices, we could have gotten something far more effective and gripping. As it is, it just amounts to a whole bunch of okay and nothing more, which is such a shame with this much talent and with this particular source material. Really, if you want to see what I'm talking about done well, watch the 40s version.